again. 5 million views, so thanks to all of you for the last month when we played those 4 test matches. We took a little break. It was way too long. The Springboks, we've missed them, Zels. They're back. And on their first trip back, they go to Brisbane's graveyard when it comes to Springbok Test Rugby since 1997 in the pro era, where we went over as world champions. We lost, and no world champion Springbok side has ever gone to Suncorp Stadium, to Brisbane, and won in that cycle. 2007 we lost, 2019 World Cup winners lost as well. But this team, announced today by Rassie surely can't lose.
I mean, I don't see how. I don't see how 2-time World Cup winners with that squad that they've chosen and just the anonymity around that Wallabies team. I know you were talking about Joe Schmidt doesn't even know his team as well as he knows the Springboks. So the Boks have got to be overwhelming favourites. And we also have to sort of tip our hat to the history, though. For whatever reason, Brisbane is a very difficult hunting ground for the Boks. There must be something to that. So as much as I'm very bullish about the Boks' chances this week, and I'm sure you are too, you've got to be wondering what it is in the water there, mate.
Okay, in the air conditioning when it comes to the change room. For those who don't quite know all the stats, we're going to give it to you for that pub talk, for the chat at the office over coffee. 1997, I was fortunate to be there for that one. Oosterrand had a great game that day. 32-20 we lost. 1999, 32-6 we lost. I was there for that one. 38-27, I was with the Boks for that one. Maurice Joubert scored the great try. Devette Barry got George Smith's dreadlock. We scored 4 tries. 29-9, 2003. I was there for that one. Mate! Louis couldn't throw a shocking intercept, and that was the end at second half. It went downhill, and that's when everyone was accused of biting, hitting, and slapping, and Eddie Jones got stuck into Red Australia after the match. He called us a bunch of thugs. Then the big one for me, that kind of highlights, we talk about how can this team possibly lose. 2009, the team that Richie McCaw said was the greatest team that he had played against. A week before they beat McCaw's All Blacks in Hamilton to win the then Tri-Nations, they lost 21-6 in Brisbane.
Were you there, mate?
I wasn't there for that one, mate. Thank God I can say I wasn't there. And then 2010, a comfortable win for the Wallabies, 30-13. And then 2013, for the first time ever, foreign-based South African players could be selected. Heineke Meyer flew up Morné Steyn, a host of players. They arrived on the Wednesday before the game and won 38-12. Scored 4 tries to 0, and it was the first time since 2001 in 30 test matches that the Wallabies had failed to score against us.
Incredible.
That has been the only win we've had there. We went back again in 2015, we lost 24-20. 2016, we lost 23-17. 2018, the team that were going to win the World Cup lost 23-18. And then the team that won the World Cup went there in 2021 and lost 30-17. You can say something now. I need to catch my breath because I'm going to read the names of those players, and it's a hell of a long list to just emphasize every great Springbok player since 1996, since the game went professional, has arrived as rugby royalty at Suncorp Stadium and left battered like a pauper and feeling like a court jester.
Mate, I would love to know, I haven't done the maths of this, I'd love to know how many of those matches in Brisbane either preceded a huge game against the All Blacks or followed a crushing defeat against New Zealand. And somehow the after effects are related to those performances, because I don't know how you explain it. It's not like the grass is a meter high there. How do you explain that they can't win?
Well, it's it's an incredible stadium, Suncorp. It's like the old Newlands on roids. The crowd is so close to the action. It's a fast-paced track. It is the ground that Australia is the most successful at. They seldom lose there. I think they've got an 80+ percentage win record there. The Brisbane crowd, and it's a sellout, really get into it. They get into your face. You only have to have seen the State of Origin games that get played there as well in rugby league. So I don't know if that has an effect, or mentally, they get into. We have a mental meltdown because the Oaks get into us. If it's the humidity, depends on what time of year you play there. It's very similar to Durban in terms of conditions.
Yeah.
But the Aussies find something extra, and I don't know if it suits their style of play because of the fast pace that they play with, which would then suit this team's style of play as well. But I have to just give these names because it's incredible when you think of who's gone to Suncorp and who's lost. Percy Montgomery, Andre Snyman, Peter Rousseau, Yanni de Beer, Joos van der Westhuizen, Osteran, Nark Kodrotska, Krano Otto, Mark Andrews, Ruben Kruger, Andre Fenter, Gary Teichman, James Small, Adrian Garvey, Henry Honeyball, Vanna Swanepoel, James Dalton, Brayton Pulser, Robbie Fleck, Peter Miller, Stefan Terblanche, Bram van Straten, Kobus Versace, Selbon Boom, Rassie Erasmus. Rassie, 1999, captained the side there and took a beating, okay? Andre Fenter, Ollie Leroux, Peter Rousseau, Van Griff, Maurice Joubert, Devet Barry, Victor Matfield, Cornet Kricher, Bob Skinstad, Joe van Niekerk, Robbie Kempson, Bakkies Boerter, Jacques Fourie, Brian Habana, John Smith, CJ van der Linde, Donnie Rousseau, Piers Spies, Ruan Pinar, Jean de Villiers, Morne Stein, Fourie de Prier, Tendai Matawarira, Bismarck Duplessis, Heinrich Brousseau, Jean Smith, Skalkberger, Frans Stein, Gertrude Steenkamp, Jannie Duplessis, Eben Etzebeth, Francois Lowe, Willem Alberts, Dwayne Vermeulen, Pat Lambie, Jan Safontein, Adrian Strauss, JP Peterson, Jesse Creel, Damien Dearlandi, Andre Pollard, Frans Malherbe, Lut de Jager, Bongi Umbanambi, Stephen Kitsoff, Trevor Anyakani, Franco Mostert, Peter Steff de Toy, Makazoli Mapimpi, Malcolm Marks, and Cheslin Colby. As I said in the Sunday Times column, I may have missed a few, so apologies. But that's the quality of player that has arrived at Suncorp in some star-studded Springbok sides and lost to some pretty mediocre Wallaby teams. Give me an explanation.
Mate, the only thing I could say is I was there in 2013 and I remember that nobody there was particularly bullish about our chances. I wonder whether a guy like Morne Stein flying in at the last minute and sort of interrupting what would otherwise have been a very normal week flow for both teams, I suppose, in terms of the analysis for the Wallabies. I don't know if that had any impact on it, but I spent most of the weeks just trying to find a place that sold chicken wings. Couldn't find a place like that. Maybe the Boks are similarly, their nutritional setup is disrupted somehow by Australia, particularly in Brisbane. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, I think it's going to come to an end this week.
Mate, you were it. Did you just hear what you said?
Joe Schmidt did call me earlier yesterday to ask if I could make it. I've actually got a bar mitzvah that week on Saturday. So,
or to say, please stay away.
Yeah,
because when you've been there,
exactly.
the only time they've won was when you've been there. And of the 2023 World Cup winning Springboks,
yeah.
I don't know if I mentioned we world champions.
Yes.
But Siya Khaleesi, Eben Etzebeth, and Willie Leroux, they were part of that 2013 famous victory when Heineke Meyer was the coach.
Do it again, Willie.
So that's there for Siya to create more history.
Yes, absolutely.
It's there for Willie and Eben to remind these guys how it feels to win because they've all lost plenty there.
Yes.
It is a graveyard. The Wallabies get something extra there. But like we said, surely this Bok team that's been announced today, and we're going to go through that. I'm going to get your thoughts on that. That team cannot possibly lose again.
Surely.
They can't go into this
Cannot
list.
happen. Impossible.
I can't update this list next week, my God. It took me long enough to type it this week. Huh?
Mate, I can't see it, and that makes me very nervous because anytime you say it can't be done in sport, mate, guaranteed it will be done.
Mate, you can't be nervous. You're never nervous.
Yeah.
So tell me your thoughts. The strongest team you think they've picked this season?
Oh, it's a lovely team. It's a lovely team. It's just nice. There's nothing stale about this team. Like there's so much going on there. Great shot to start Sasha. He's got the comfort of Kobus Reinach at 9. Some experience there. Andre's on the bench for insurance. Not that we need it with a guy like Sasha. Yeah, it's just great. I think it's a lovely team. I think the only question marks I might have is on the bench. Obviously, they've got a history of picking two fetchers on the bench and using that in the second half to attack, I suppose, tired legs at times and maybe sloppy breakdown work. But just a great team. I know there's a question mark around Erkir Snyman, whether he's going to play because he picked up a niggle in training. And I think Rassie said that Ruan Okir was on standby for that. So it'd be interesting to see whether a guy like Ruan Okir slots straight in at 5 or if we see Peter Steff move to 5 and BJ start at blindside flanker with Ruan on the bench. But great team. Love it.
Well, you're someone that hates to complicate things. You always say if you can swap 1 for 1, then do that, which would imply that Ruan Okir comes straight in and he plays with the comfort of an Eben Etzebeth. But for those who don't know the side yet, back 3, Willie Leroux, Cheslin and Kurt Lee. No surprises there. Willie's back from the concussion.
Yep.
And then Jesse Creel, in such incredible form. Lucky Am hasn't forced his way back into the squad yet, Lukanya Am. And then obviously Damien Dearlandi there, best 12 we believe, best 12 in the world.
Yep.
And to have that comfort outside of him, Sasha, and on his inside, Kobus Reinach, and with Faf picking up a niggle and not going on tour, Rassie was very clear about the next cab off the rank was the most experienced guy who's been to 2 World Cups and won it. That's Kobus Reinach. And when he said that, you got a hint that he was going to give Sasha this one, and it may be that he gives Marnie one next week, or if Sasha goes well, he gives him another one, and Marnie's going to play against the Pumas or potentially against the All Blacks. But this is certainly the season for the breakthrough season for Sasha.
Definitely.
That he's played in every Test match. He's been given the responsibility, and that can only be the wiser and the better for playing him. Given Pollard, we know what he does. He's a natural World Cup winner. As I say, balls of steel, ice in his veins. We just need him to be there. 2027, closing out the World Cup final. In the last 20, you bring him on and you just let him kick 2 big penalties and
bring him over for the playoffs.
Just bring him over for the playoffs, yeah. Like let him rest before that. But in the forwards, then the usual suspects. Sia's there. You got Peter Steph du Toit there. He said he was going to play Ulrich Lowe at number 8. Your point of the 2 fetchers, they love playing Kwagga and Marco van Staden in tandem.
Yes.
You know, one forages, the other one takes the ball and runs with it. The other one forages, the other one takes the ball. So the mix is really then when you've got a guy like Malcolm Marx who can come off the bench as well. It's looking like that machine that started to come together in the playoffs of the 2023 World Cup, where the Irish series, it was still, the side was good, but kind of caught between 2 worlds.
Yeah, no, I think, and look, we still have question marks over how they're going to play, but in terms of the makeup of that team, it just feels like it's a logical selection. It seems like it makes sense. We're building on what we've discovered in the first couple of matches of the season, without going away from our experience that we have from a double World Cup winning team, and also without sort of picking the same guys week in and week out, guys who have question marks about whether they're actually going to make it to the next World Cup. So there's enough going on here to keep everybody interested, I would say.
Is Sasha Tony Brown's project? And do you think Tony Brown's got that voice to say, I want to see this kid play and I want to see him start?
Well, I think Tony Brown has timed his timing is perfect, because this kid has obviously got a lot to offer and he's an all-rounder. So it's not like you're picking a kid that adds massive value in one facet of play but makes you vulnerable in others. He's a great all-rounder and has the temperament to go with it, and is young enough, obviously, just starting out his Test career, to be a prospect for many, many years to come. So he's sort of hinging it on a guy who, if there are some speed bumps on the road, you've got Andre Pollard in your back pocket to come in and clean things up. It's the perfect sort of test lab. And
it's also managing those players, and especially if we look at the veterans. You look at the Siya Khaleesi's of the world, the Andre Pollards, and you want them to get to the next World Cup. The Ibn Etzebets. Do they have another World Cup in them? You know, Rassie says the jury's still out. He mentioned Ibn as one. He mentioned Siya as one. And so there's no promises being made to them yet, which was something that happened to that 2011 squad.
Yes.
That a lot of promises were made. You will go to that World Cup after the Lions series in 2009, and some of them lost form.
Big time.
Kind of known that their ticket was guaranteed on the plane. So there's a lot of realism about who he's got in terms of his old stalwarts that won 2 World Cups and who he needs to replace him, whether it's a like-for-like replacement or something very different. The style of play, what are you expecting against Australia, given what we've seen from Australia and how they play? And their 2 Test wins against Wales, and obviously the win against Georgia, 40-29, but that was pretty much a mixed match second team. This is the best Australian team that we'll see. Will be closer to the one that played against Wales.
Yeah, I think I have no idea what the Boks are going to try and do. I'm fairly confident that Australia would love the Boks to go coast to coast and be less direct, because it takes some of the spotlight off the fact that they have question marks over their physical intensity, especially up front. So for Australia, if the Boks are going to 2 and 3 pass it all day, I think they'll be very happy with that. That'll feed their defence, I suppose, and bring them into the game more than if the Boks go 1 pass rugby, go very direct and see whether you can stop us at the gain line nice and close to the breakdown. So which way the Boks are going to go, I don't know. And I think we are going to see this experimentation from a week-to-week basis with the Boks. I think they are going to vacillate between different styles and maybe make it a bit of a horses for courses kind of thing. So interested to see which way we go.
Staying with the big fellas, the big guys, the Peter Steffs, the Toys, the Evans, the Frans Malhabers and that. to play the kind of rugby they played in that first half against Ireland, you've got to be so conditioned. And we were pretty much close to being out on our feet in that last 10 at Loftus. And also, kind of, Ireland finished the stronger in Durban. And that's been a theme with all South African teams this season, playing at home, playing at altitude. Visiting teams seem to have managed the altitude factor or even the humidity better. Is there any relevance to what I'm saying, that if they play it like they did in that first 40, it really plays into Australia's hands and we could find ourselves gunned by 60 minutes?
Yeah, I would think so. I wonder also how much of that had to do with the clarity around the plan. So if you're going to play a wide, high-pass, expansive game and you have a little bit of... there's a learning curve in terms of who needs to be where and when, and guys are still adapting to the system. There'll be times when you have to kind of accelerate to catch up with the play because you're actually a little bit out of position. And I wonder whether that didn't take some of the sting out of the conditioning of the Boks. Maybe the more familiar they get with it, that conditioning factor will be less of an issue. Also, they've got more minutes in that style of play under the belt. So I don't know whether the conditioning thing is going to be so much of a factor. I think that they will have taken some learnings out of that and they'll better manage it. And my concerns about that plan are not so much about conditioning, because you can condition a team to do anything, as we've seen with the Blitz box. You can get guys up and ready to play a certain style. It's more of the sort of probability factors around it, as we've spoken about before.
All right, and there are going to be law variations for the first time in the Rugby Championship. The red card, there's going to be a change to that. If it's foul play and the guy gets red carded, high level of danger, he doesn't come back. He's off. It's the old traditional way that they've always done it. Red card, you're gone. However, if it's a professional foul, say 2 yellows and he gets sent for a red, it's 20 minutes, red card. The offending player will be removed from the match, but can be replaced by another player, and their rationale is the individual, not the game, punished for the red card offences. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think probably 10 years too late, but it's good to see that rugby is finally waking up to the fact that this hysteria and red carding, sending players off the field is a complete overreach. So it's good that we're starting to take steps back to sanity. I still don't know what they mean by a high level of danger. A high level of danger of what? Because I don't know how many guys have been referred for HIAs and then they passed the test. So a high level of danger according to who, and the danger of what happened, I don't know. So I think the red card move is a great move. If I'd paid to go and watch a performance and I went to a Mariah Carey concert and she was off for 10 minutes for something, I'd be a little bit upset because I've spent money on it. Mariah Carey's the singer, by the way, for the younger viewers.
You went to a Mariah
No, I'm
Carey?
saying if.
Why would you go to a Mariah Carey?
Because she's amazing.
Oh, do you love her?
I love her voice. She was great. Back in the day, I was a kid. I was a teenager then. She was
Did you have a crush on her?
A big crush. Mariah, I got close, but it was in the days before social media, man. I had to write her letters and stuff. So.
And did you ever get a response?
No, her manager got a hold of me once. He was like, "Listen, kid, give it up. It's not happening."
Give it up, or you're not Mariah's type, eh?
No, so I'm just saying, you know, if you pay to go watch an entertainment and you know, if half of the
Mariah
content
Carey.
you're missing, guys, you're missing the entertainment. It's like, why? Like, why would you go back? It's
Look,
it's
I
bad for the game.
would be offended if I pulled a ticket for Jay-Z and Beyonce and.
Oh, so you're a rapper? What?
No, I'm just living in the year 2024, mate.
Oh, mate,
but it's nice that you
go
kind
back to the 90s, mate. They were great.
The 80s were even better.
Yeah.
Countdown clock for scrum lineups and kicks at goal. Conversion penalty.
Man.
Now it is just 60 seconds, not 60 and 90. It should always have been 60 seconds. I think if you go back and when it was not timed, most of them got it over in 45 seconds or 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, so if play restarts from a penalty, it's a scrum to the other team. That's it's pretty meaningless there. A scrum, this is going to be an interesting one, must be set 30 seconds from when the mark for the scrum is made by the referee. And a free kick shall be awarded at the place of the scrum against a team causing the delay. Now, how do you interpret who caused the delay?
Mate.
Back we go to referee interpretation.
That's just a circus waiting to happen. And I think the fatties are going to love that because they love the game within the game. And this has just added another layer to it. I don't see how that's going to have any relevance. I mean, I think that's just a silly one. The ref can easily control the game where he says, listen, guys, it's time to scrum. And he could have made these calls long ago. So there's 30-second things.
And then you get some of these referees, once they make the mark, they take about a minute to get that scrum engagement call out. The line out, another one here, it must be formed 30 seconds.
I think that's a good one because there is some gameplay around how long it takes a line out to set up. And guys sort of hang around, have a little huddle before they step in.
And then a free kick shall be awarded on the 50-meter line against the team causing the delay. Okay. The rationale, speed up the ball, returning play after score, kick for touch or scrum.
You see, the thing is, if guys are genuinely tired and they're getting to a scrum at 35 seconds instead of 30, now you've got them getting there at 25, all that's going to happen is you're probably going to have more scrum resets.
Okay, but now I want to know, is that clock going to be effective? Is it going to say every time 30, 29, 28?
Yeah, because everyone can see it.
Because again, we go back to every time they've trialed something, and at one stage it was the high tackle, for example.
Yeah.
Then if you just hit someone on the hips, you were sent. Okay, you were penalised. Then that lasted about 2 weeks. The referees didn't kind of officiate it. Then it was the kick and chase, taking a guy out in the air. I mean, if you just brushed him on the way past, you were gone. That lasted about 3 weeks. Okay. Then it was the 9 putting the ball in to the scrum. It had to be dead centre, so there had to be an element of raking it back, the older rake days, the hooker. Now the 9 is just putting the ball back under the 8th man's feet.
Because they're trying to get rid of the scrum.
Yeah, and they're trying to and get the game going. So that was police for about two weeks. Then it was the neck roll. There's been an indifference to it with some referees, and with some there's been a lot of focus on it. Some TMOs love it, some don't. So every time they've introduced these things, there's not been a sustainability to it because there's not been a follow through. It's like, let's just get this thing done. People will stop talking about it in 3 weeks, and we move on.
Yeah.
Do you see that happening with this protection of the 9 at the base of the scrum, ruck, and at the maul?
So I think that's a good one because I think that players who are in a ruck and in a maul interfering with the scrum half, that's just a bit of shithousery, to be honest. Like, there's no positive impact to the game. It just creates an uncertainty. There's no platform to play from. So I think that's a fair one. I don't think it's going to change our ref the game because as it is, if the scrum half picks up the ball and somebody in the ruck slaps it out of his hands, the refs intervene. So I don't see a material thing there. I think the big one is the scrum off at the scrum.
But listen to this, at the ruck, a player who is part of the ruck may not play an opponent who's near it and who's attempting to play the ball away. But then it says nearest defined in the law as being within 1 meter. So why did they just say a player who was part of the ruck may not play an opponent who's within 1 meter?
That'd be too easy, man.
And that's a penalty. At the maul, a player who is part of the maul may not play an opponent near it. Is that also 1 meter?
You actually need RoboCop to be able to ref this game according to the laws.
And then the scrum, as you say, once plays in the scrum begins, the scrum off of the team not in possession must take up a position with both feet no further than the centre line of the tunnel, down to interpretation again, or permanently retires to a point on the offside line, again down to interpretation, at the team's hindmost foot. Okay, down to interpretation, or permanently retires at least 5 meters behind the hindmost foot, sanctioned penalty. You can just see this thing becoming a mess again. Okay,
Circus.
The rationale, all 3 measures allow the scrum half, or player in that role, to play the ball away cleanly from the phase of play without disruption, because that's going to speed up the game. Okay, and then this is an interesting one as well. Play on for a line out, not straight if the throw is uncontested. Now, does a team say that there was a kind of contesting or that there wasn't a contesting? Are we going to go to the TMO for that? Because now I throw it over, it's skew, you catch it, it's play on, I turn the ball over and you come back and score. And it's like, hang on a second, we want to have the line out.
Yeah.
We want the ball on our terms from the scrum. We don't want play on. Down to interpretation.
Yep.
They say it doesn't force a stopping play where no material offence has taken place. Based on that...
Why wouldn't you just say that a skew feed to your side is immediately whatever it is, regardless of whether anybody... I don't understand.
But the rationale, it doesn't force a stopping play where no material offence has taken place. So when that guy gets played off the ball, 4 passes down, a little bump, why are we going back for the penalty when it doesn't interfere and no material offence has taken place?
I don't know, mate. I don't know.
I don't know. It's crazy, man.
What I will say about the scrum defence thing is I think... And I mean, look, I haven't spent hours and hours thinking about this, but if I was a defending team, I'd probably just put my scrum off in the line. because regardless of what you do with him, if you leave him at the tunnel, it's probably just going to be an 8-9 kind of play from the base, because ideally the attack wants to get over the gain line. So they're going to do it right next to the scrum where you've given them a free access and then play off that second phase, probably. So I think all it's going to do potentially is load the defense with an extra man in the line, which just encourages the attack to play narrower and get over the gain line quickly and then play off second phase.
Does anything change in terms of our approach, player approach, because of these variations or law
I wouldn't think
interpretations?
so, no.
Will the average person out there even know that anything's changed?
Probably not, no.
I'm not talking about this astute student of the game. I'm talking about the person who just loves
that's
rugby,
how it really gonna
has played
change
it
a
at
lot.
school, plays it at club level. Will they know that there's...
I'm going to enjoy watching the fatties run to the scrum, though, at the end of the game. That's going to be fun.
But now, when we decide we want the scrum 30 meters away, we wait there.
Exactly. Exactly. They're going to sprint back.
Call the mark now. 30, 29, 28.
After a long period of advantage, mates. Those two tight fives sprinting back.
Why don't they just leave our scrum alone? It's the most
Exactly.
beautiful part of the game.
Exactly.
It's a wonderful scrum contest.
Yep.
Okay. We don't want guys who are 6'2", ripped, 105 kilograms, who could play in the centres.
BJ Dixon at loose head.
Yeah, just putting the head down for a restart. That's rugby league, man. That's
Correct.
sevens.
Correct.
That's sevens in rugby league.
Correct.
So, looking at the Australian side, and I mean, you gave me a good education before we started the show that you knew no one in that side, and I equally recognise only a few names. Mostly I recognised who wasn't there. We do know that the Brumbies were fairly competitive in Super Rugby Pacifica, and that the Aussie teams poxed the odd game that you thought they wouldn't. But by and large, it was just the Brumbies who were competitive, but then they also got blown away in the quarterfinal when they went to Hamilton.
There's just nobody there to really
Who's
hang
there?
your hats on. There's no one to hang your hats on, really. I mean, when Will Skelton and Korobetti are the two guys that are going to sort of like anchor the team, I don't know, mate. I mean, I was talking to somebody in the office earlier today, and I said, name me the Wallabies 2024 squad. Just give me some names. And he came up with like 3 or 4 names. And I said, okay, name the 99 Wallabies. And he could just about name the entire match day squad.
Did you know how good they were?
I mean, they were
They were
amazing,
world
mate.
champions. They were one of the great teams.
Mate,
I've
fantastic.
listed them as one of my great teams ever.
Indeed. But I'm just saying, like this team, there's a lot of guys here that really have to absolutely shoot the lights out, play well above any expectation to even be in the same conversation as the Boks.
Okay, now, a lot of the guys have made mention in the interviews. And we're such gentle blokes when we get interviewed, and so our players, I mean, they really are respectful to the opposition. They don't, outside of Ireland, where I think they tried to do a bit of trash talking, didn't really work, but they are very complimentary and flattering about what they've seen in Super Rugby. But the fact that we don't play Super Rugby anymore, that we don't play over there, does that put in a doubt and an insecurity in our minds, or is it an irrelevant factor given the strength and the composure and the experience of this current squad?
I don't think it makes much difference. As far as I can remember, we've got Paul Williams, the Kiwi ref, in Perth. And the way that a Southern Hemisphere refs the Boks may take a second to adjust to, given we've had so many Northern Hemisphere refs. But I don't really see how Super Rugby is going to change anything, because I think Super Rugby teams would struggle to be competitive in the URC. And that style of rugby where it's sort of defense optional and offloads and I'm not sure that really translates to the test arena. And so that comes back to my earlier point about, I think the Wallabies would like it if we try and indulge in a bit of basketball.
But you wouldn't go that route.
I wouldn't go there. I'd just go powerlifting.
What would your approach be against these Neville nobodies?
Just give the ball to Ewan, give the ball to our heavies, smash it up front, pulverize them, get gain line, and then play the backs and score tries in the corner.
So it's quite a simple game. The way we played them basically at Loftus with Eddie. Put 40 points past them.
I'd also give them lots of opportunities to have to try and exit with the pack that's getting beaten up.
And our strength is still our forwards, and you know that thing in Afrikaans, makele sag voor.
Exactly, just keep it simple, man.
We also don't want to be playing Bledisloe Cup rugby against them because we don't have to.
Yes, but having said that, if this is an objective for Rassie to kind of get to the end of this rabbit hole and see how far we can go with this, then a relatively, and I use that word in all sincerity, a relatively easy hit out against the Wallabies, even though it's at the graveyard, is a great opportunity to test what you think you can do there and get some answers.
And the psychological benefit of a win on Saturday
Jeez.
would be, we have to come back here and play in the World Cup in
Exactly.
2027. We have to potentially play a playoff game in Brisbane. And it may be against Australia. We must know we've beaten them there. And not part of this illustrious crew that have gone there and left with their names engraved on that tombstone. It's just an incredible list of players. And you look, and when I did the research, the match squads, it was 21, then obviously 22, then 23. And you looked at, there was probably 2 of those matches where you looked at the Australian side and thought, I can see why this Boks team lost to this Australian side. But for the rest, just like, how? How the hell did this, was this team even competitive with the Boks? And again, you heard Don Newman speaking about the Aussie forward tricks, scrum tricks, and intelligence in this. I think we're a pretty intelligent team, the Springboks.
Very much so.
Very intelligent team. This nonsense that we just big, strong water buffalo.
I think what's changed is in the past, referees weren't very clever about scrum tactics. And they've simplified that whole thing now. You can't, the days of Bill Young hoodwinking the ref for 80 minutes, I think, are over.
And taking a little stroll around.
Yeah, they're sort of cramming and all that sort of stuff. I think you won't get away with it nowadays.
Okay, looking at the game, I asked you this before the Irish series. What are you looking for individually? And you're not allowed to mention Sasha's name, okay?
Damn it!
Because if you mention his name again, you got to get a room. Okay? You got to get a room, mate. We felt that Eben kind of was okay, but not at his dominant best against Ireland.
Yes.
And it may have been that fatigue, because I think he played 3 club games for the Sharks in the tail end there, and he led them to the Challenge Cup victory. I mean, he was good, but he wasn't this presence that we saw at the World Cup. Are you expecting a ripper from him?
I am expecting a ripper from all of the Boks forwards. I really think that this is a buffet opportunity. Eat as much as you can, And I think they need to make the most of that opportunity, especially at the set piece. Word of caution, watching the Wallabies against Wales, their line-out contesting has been really good. They got I think it's Jeremy Williams or something, really good at the front of the line-out. So I'm interested to see how they challenge Bongi and Malcolm at the line-out and whether they are able to get some steals there. Outside of that, in the physical exchanges, I expect the Boks to dominate. And with that dominance, I expect the Boks backs to have a good time. And to make, when I say have a good time, the opportunities that are presented to them by this pack of forwards, I'd like to see a high level of efficiency with that, a good execution rate. So if we get into the strike zone and we are dominating up front, I'd love to see us finish those opportunities with a high rate of success.
And would you love to see a moment in a game where it's Grant Williams and Sasha? I'm allowed to mention him, not you. You can just say yay, nay.
So you've spoken about the fly half, who I have mentioned I enjoy. I would love to see Grant get on the field because that's the perfect arena for him. This Brisbane fast pitch, potentially playing an expansive game. His speed really comes in there, can be a destructive factor. I understand why Kobus is there as a veteran presence inside the guy who we've spoken about is playing fly half. But I would love to see Grant get an extended run against the Wallabies at some point in the next 2 matches.
And they've covered their bases everywhere superbly. Grant Williams covers wing as well. Kurtley Orense covers fullback. Sasha covers fullback. Polly covers fly. Polly covers inside centre as well. Jesse can cover the win if he had to. You could even move Dukes out to 13 if you had to do that and put Polly at 10. Could you see a thing during the course of the game, if it's going well, that you may find Polly on at 12? Just because they want to give him a hit out there.
Well, apparently, the guy that you mentioned who's playing 10 is also covering fullback.
Yes.
So there's a chance that he shifts in the game. Polly comes on at 10. Maybe he does play some 12, but comes on at 10. And whoever, if you're a backline player, even some of the forwards, when you get the ball, just hoist it on Tom Wright, mate. If he's at fullback, that's a guaranteed win. That's easy possession and territory.
Tom Wright scored a great try in the earlier internationals. I know that you are a huge fan of his, and you've been proven right on occasion. But they do like to play from broken play. We saw that.
Do.
They are technically very good at the lineup. We saw that. Their scrum is going to always creak. We know that. How good are they going to be over the ball?
Yeah, that's going to be a point of interest. So they're missing Fraser McWright, and they're looking at some youngsters from Super Rugby, relative unknown. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play that, and also how they play the ref in that situation, because that's the area where it is relatively grey, and the Wallabies can live in that space. So I think that'll be a point of contest for them.
All right, okay. Looking at the game, looking at the effect of history, and then to quote the Boks management again, They said history is irrelevant. Saturday will be the new history, and by Sunday it will be irrelevant as well to what happens the next time. I think those pearls of wisdom came from Don Heeman. A man, when he speaks, the world listens because they see how that pack scrums. The Boks cannot lose this test match. Yes or no?
I mean, are you asking me if it's physically possible that they can lose this test match? Listen, all I'm saying is I remember us being quite sheepish after the last time we called the Boks to win on the East Coast and having lots of egg on our face to apologize for. And I vowed to myself that day, the next time that they're in Brisbane, I will not be bullish. Having said that, I feel like the Boks are 25-point favorites this week. And I'm going to give them 12 points just to sort of give myself some insurance.
Okay, you like insurance policies. Let's just call it the Andre Pollard policy.
There we go.
The reason we had egg on our faces was because I called the Wallabies pussies, okay? And that upset a lot of people, and I apologized for that afterwards when they manhandled us under Dave Rennie.
People for Cats were particularly upset.
Yes, and Morgan Turanui gave me a slapping on social media, and I accepted that from Big Nor.
You sent him a box of donuts, mate.
I said to him, apologies, and he said, apologies accepted, mate. So they really came out and physically did a number on us under Dave Rennie. They'll be more technical under Joe Smith. Have they got the cattle to be as physical?
No, I don't think they got the ticket to do that. And I think the way the Boks got manhandled by Ireland has kind of put them on notice. Look, the next time you play serious opponents, we expect you to make a statement. So I think the timing may be off for the Wallabies.
Okay. Are the Australian serious opponents, given Jeff Miller, the Wallaby of the 80s, has
Called
said
Wales a second tier?
Second tier. At the moment, would you call the Wallabies second tier?
Well, mate, I think there is only, there are only maybe 2.5 teams that are first tier, that are top tier, and that's South Africa, New Zealand, and England at this point. So,
and what about Ireland, mate?
Well, Ireland, mate, Ireland, they don't get past the quarterfinals. No, look, we had some fun with Ireland. I'm just saying the second tier is very big now. Lots of teams are in the second tier. So,
would you put the Wallabies?
I would put the Wallabies in the second tier.
Would you put them leading the pack in the second tier? Because they did beat Wales twice in Georgia.
But it was Wales, mate.
and the other wins were against Portugal and Georgia.
Yeah,
that's basically who they've beaten in the last year and a half.
They've been down for a long time, mate. They've been down for a long time, and they've got a lot of work to do.
Okay, so we're getting up at 6 o'clock. It's a 6:30 a.m. kickoff. It's an afternoon game. Again, I keep on going back to conditions. Suncorp in the evening, very different to Suncorp in the afternoon. When we lost 30-17 at Suncorp, it was also an afternoon game in 2021, where we tried to play coast to coast, looked magnificent in doing it, and got pumped. They scored 4 tries in the first half. We came back with a mauling try near the end to give it a little bit of respectability. Does the afternoon kickoff influence anything else?
Absolutely nothing, mate. Except for you and me, I'm thinking we just stay up Friday night, watch the game, and then go get some shut-eye afterwards. Waking up early, mate, I don't know.
What, I mean, 6 o'clock...
Very early for a beer.
6 o'clock is not that early, mate. It's I know you're at the gym at 5 o'clock. The next one's going to be great in Perth, though, because it's going to be at 2 o'clock in the afternoon kickoff, and it's going to be a ripper, because dan kan ons drink. 2 o'clock kickoffs are just magnificent.
Indeed.
The game's over by 4 o'clock. Deadlines are made. You've got your whole evening, and you've had the morning to yourself. And then the next night, Drinkus gives the style bender a bit of a whipping as well.
Let's go.
Perth. But before Perth, it's Brisbane. I want a score from you, an exact score, and I'm going to give you mine, and then we're going to touch on the All Blacks and a couple of other things.
31-19, Springboks.
That's your 12 points, okay? I've got the Boks to win 35-15, 20 points. No disrespect to the Wallabies.
Lots of disrespect.
I think they'll be tough.
No,
They'll play with heart.
This is a lie.
No, it's not. Morgan, the boys, absolute respect for that Wallaby jersey. They've always troubled us in Australia. We've troubled them in South Africa. It's like a 47% win ratio for us. Fortunately, we're still edging ahead. We do have 4 World Cup titles. They have 2. But when I think of that 2009 team that went and lost 21-6, that just sits there a little bit in the back of my head, and that's why I've given them 15 points and given us 35, okay? Sia Khaleesi to make history again. A nice appetizer for the one that follows. All Blacks at home against Los Pumas. Ricky, what do you say?
I've got nothing to say about the All Blacks, but what I will tell you is about these Springboks. In the casino world, they say the house always wins. But this week, at the Suncorp Bellagio, I am predicting that Terry Benedict is going to be very upset because the rules are about to change. Enjoy the game.
Thanks.
There you go.
All Blacks.
The All Blacks. All Blacks will pump the Pumas.
Okay.
Yeah, even with Sammy Kane.
38-18 I've got. 20 points as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'll give them 20 points. And I'll give the All Blacks to get into the 40s, mate. So let's say 43-21.
That's a 22-point differential. Zels are going 22 points. I'm going 20 points. It's going to be great rugger in the morning. 6:30 is the kickoff on Supersport. I think it's 9 o'clock after that is the All Blacks. But if I'm Barrydale, a place that's very close to my heart, there's a big derby going on. It is the Flying Eagles. The Flying Eagles. Here they are. They presented me with this beautiful flag.
You got it upside down, mate.
Okay, mate. The Flying Eagles in Barrydale.
Yes.
The Flying Eagles are playing against Straders. And the Flying Eagles, they're the original. Straders are a breakaway. But Straders have pumped them in the last 3 games. The last one being 10-0. But it's going to be a great day out there for the
Give us a prediction, mate.
I think the Flying Eagles are going to lose again.
Oh!
It's going to be close. But what's happened there through Rick Melville from the Karoo Art Hotel, John Dobber's also helped, Conroy, Mickey Mance. There's a wonderful initiative. They've started live commentary at the field, and Derby Day is going to be a big one. And Zels and myself are kind of involved in promoting it for the community and seeing is the next voice of South African rugby there, be it radio, be it streaming, be it TV. There are auditions that are going on. They started last weekend. You'll see the clips. But if you're close to Barrydale, get down there and watch the game. It's just a wonderful community, wonderful rugby spirit. And it kind of shows the essence of what rugby in South Africa is and what it means to the people. John Dobson and I were fortunate to visit there on the eve of the opening test against Ireland. We had an incredible Friday night there, and then we had an incredible Saturday night where we watched the game live, did a couple of chats, and drank lots of Jägermeister. And just Dobbo spoke with such passion to the community players and said, you know, rugby gives you hope. It gave him hope as a young player. And stay off the streets, stay out of the shebeen, stay out of the bars, stay away from drugs, and kind of go to a rugby field and kind of find yourself on a rugby field. And it was a very emotive talk that he gave. You guys have been kind enough to run a big feature on it in SA Rugby magazine. And it's that kind of exposure that we need to be giving these rugby communities and giving those kids hope to say, it's not just about the Springboks, when Cape Town, the Stormers, Bulls, Lions, Cheetahs, Sharks, but it's about everyone who gives to this wonderful sport in South Africa that makes it so good. And that's why we also have 22,000 people at a schools derby. Paul Boys against Paul Gym. Paul Gym won 30 points to 8. Incredible result. So to all the old ex-Paul Battle Gym owners, feels geluk. There's a big one coming now. Paul Russ against Grey College. There's just so much. Wynberg against Sax. Oh! It's not going to go well there for the Sax boys. I think Wynberg may just edge us. And obviously Bishops against Rondebosch. And then all other derbies. So our schools rugby is strong. Our club rugby is strong. Our varsity cup. I've loved watching the Curry Cup. You've made me watch the Curry Cup.
It's been great. It's been fabulous. Like I say, when the levels are a little bit lower and there's some equality, the rugby's been fantastic to watch. Very entertaining.
On this note, before we check out,
yes,
is South African rugby at all levels the healthiest it's ever been? Bearing in mind, we took a bronze at the Olympics. Our women won a game for the first time at the Olympics. Would it be fair to say South African rugby has never been healthier?
I think South African rugby finds a lot of its health in the success of the Springboks, and we are back-to-back world champions, and that is definitely trickling down. At a time when we have 1,000 of our top players or 1,000 of our players plying their trade abroad, to be able to do what we are able to do in South Africa, in a Curry Cup, with the Sevens is phenomenal. So I think we've got as many players overseas as some countries have players, and yet we are still able to put together competitive URC teams, Championship URC teams, finals contesting URC teams, and then Currie Cup teams that play some great rugby. Some great youngsters coming through in this Currie Cup. And it's what I love about the Currie Cup now is you got the kids who are still struggling to grow a beard, and then the Oaks with the Gandalf beards who've been doing it for 30 years. They've played 600 matches, you know. And when those two worlds collide, it's fantastic.
Fantastic. So Sia and the boys, Rasta, make us proud, create more history, Boks by 20 in Brisbane, get up, it's going to be worthwhile. And then we watch Los Pumas. Just kind of give the All Blacks a little bit of physical intensity for an hour before they come away with it, and we start thinking about those 2 dream test matches, one in Johannesburg, one in Cape Town, All Blacks against the Springboks, 2023 World Cup final revisited. It's going to be an amazing, amazing next month of rugby.